This is multi-level modeling, and we will be applying this to a particular network of food sharing in the Yecuana community. So I would like to describe the Yecuana food sharing network in Venezuela. I would like everyone to make a basic understanding of the concept of multi-level networks, to make a very brief comparison among algorithms to model these kind of networks, and understand current problems with modeling software, because the comparison was very problematic. So the Yecuana food sharing network consists in data that was gathered in 1975 during a time of 10 months, and it involved 8 households of this community, 81 residents who have had this custom of inviting somebody over to share dinner or to share a meal. Generally any of the 3 meals, and this kind of meal sharing depended on different characteristics of the community, most importantly the interactions among the residents, and the interactions among the families. So this food sharing network has been studied from time to time using different networks. And right now, with this paper that I was particularly focusing on, it was studied how links depended on characteristics such as association between families, pairs of families, distance from household to household, kinship relationships among families, and the number of shared meals were the outcome. Now, in order to simulate this apparently simple network, and actually several techniques were involved. For example, what we have the most notorious technique is multi-level modeling. And multi-level modeling, on the one hand, it involves several effects, several contributions to the number of meals that are shared, but one of the most important difference is the involvement of mixed effects, which means on one hand we have fixed effects such as the association, distance, and kinship that I just described, and also random effects such as effects related to the household that is inviting the guest, the household from which the guest comes, the kind of relationship that the guest personally has with the family, which is a little bit correlated with the association, and reciprocity, which is a big trend in this kind of network. Now, the random effects are represented in this figure that I have for you here. In our class, we have seen this figure in the left. We have a bunch of data about how many meals have been shared in each and every pair of households, and what we try to do is to create a model which would be represented by one of these straight lines, and from those possible lines choose the best possible one, the best possible model, and we create a criterion for that, such as the sum of squares, which was what we used for the linear regression that we studied in class. Now, which one is the best possible approximation when we have random effects? Well, when we have random effects, what it means is that the representation, the line, the model is not a line anymore. It is a field. It is an interval of possible outcomes that might be this red one or the green one. So once again, we need to create a criterion of, for example, how large are the contributions of the random effects, and so which one would be the best of these two models. Now, moving on, this paper, this particular paper in which I focused considers, just to complicate things a little more, considers 5 different models. And the purpose of that is to study isolated, the contributions of isolated effects. Now, the difference among these models is which of the fixed effects are considered. So, for example, the first model would be no fixed effects, only the intercept and the random effects that I showed you guys in the last slide. Model number 2 would be only considering association, how the fixed effect of association, that characteristic of association among households, would contribute together with the random effects to the number of meals that are shared. Another possibility, the model number 3, is only distance with the random effects. The other one, kinship relationships among the households. And finally, the model 5 is what looks like the most complete model, considering everything together. So, after considering all this complexity with 5 models and with random effects and fixed effects, then that begs the question: which one is the best model of all of this? So we need to create criteria for deciding on the best model with these complications. So the first one is that the model matches the network data as closely as possible. This is the same as we learned with linear regression. Now, the second very important consideration is to make the model as simple as possible. We don't want too many variables, too many contributions. We don't want anything like that. And the sample size might also make a contribution. Now, I forgot to mention that this is actually a relatively small model, because what we have is only 56 data points corresponding to all the houses, to each pair of houses. Now, these 3 criteria can be combined to make information criteria, and each one of them have been studied for decades to create different information criteria, such as this: a K-base, the variance information criteria, and focused information criteria, and each one of them has been built with different interests. For example, the focused information criterion allows you, the researcher, to select which of the features, which of the association or kinships of distance are the most important to you, for you to research about. So this is something that you guys might come across, and so it really bears the need for start. Now, in order to fit these models, obviously we need some appropriate modeling software, and for the particular problem of mixed effects, including random effects and fixed effects, we have a bunch of software at our disposal, such as this software from Britain called MLWin, and we can use Stata or R packages that connect us to MLWin. In Stata, we can use Run MLWin. This is a package for R is R2MLWin. But what I wanted to do for this paper, in contrast to what the authors did originally with Run MLWin with Stata, I wanted to do everything using only R, because these are new packages that are available, that have been made available since that time. So, with this, my original research question was: will I be able to reproduce the same results? Will I be able to fit the model and obtain the same estimates using any of this software that I listed? So that was my original hypothesis, that yes, that I could reproduce, because the software and the mathematical method should not make a statistically significant difference. However, I ran into several problems. First of all, some of the algorithms didn't converge, which in plain English means that some of these algorithms didn't even produce any results. not even incorrect or far results from the original. It didn't even produce results. And those who converge produced results that are statistically different from the original paper. So is the original paper irreproducible? Or what problems are we running into? So in order to understand these problems, which you guys can run into, we need to understand that software for modeling has a lot of moving parts. It has some algorithm to estimate a likelihood, the likelihood, which is how good the model fits the data, an optimizer, which is that function that helps the computer to approach the best possible model, the best possible version of the model, the best possible solution, and different approximations to the likelihood, to the optimizers, etc. And those are not always very well documented. So, for example, some parts are not even implemented. In the particular case of R is contributed, as it's open source, we are depending on people willing to do that and not always getting paid. So that was a particular problem with one of the packages that I used in R, that the best approximations and the best likelihood estimator, they were actually not implemented. And another problem that we can frequently run into is that our algorithm will depend on initial conditions, will depend on the initial values that we give to the parameters. Once again, it shouldn't be the case, but it happens because that's just how computers behave. So, in spite of all those problems, I just wanted to show you guys one of the results that I have, which is I was able to fit the model using most of the algorithms, and what I wanted to do here is to make a comparison of 3 of the model selection criteria. Now, the model selection criteria, these models are very complex mathematical expressions that you guys do not have to memorize or calculate by yourselves. It is the R package or the Stata package is supposed to produce these numbers for you. So what I just did here is I produced the 5 models using one of the algorithms. This algorithm, very fortunately, it produces 3 of the information criteria that you have there, the Akaike, the Bayes, and the bias information criteria. And I just made this very simple comparison for you guys. So what you guys see here is that what we have here are more penalties from top to bottom. These are more penalties for complexity. And what we do with these numbers, what we do with this criteria, we just, from all the models that we are comparing, we select the largest, in this case, the largest of the criteria, which would correspond to model number 4. Model number 4 over there would be the best model for this particular full sharing network. Not the 5th model, as I mentioned at the beginning. The 5th model would look like the best, like the most complete. The case is that due to the penalty of the complexity, it is actually not very good. The most appropriate would be the 4th model. So I think that's what I have for you guys. I cannot show you all the work that went through it, but thank you for bearing with me. Any questions?
On that previous slide, what were the numbers on the y-axis?
So this number is the value of the criterion. Think of the criterion just as a big formula, and this formula is not like a probability. It is just a number. It is just a number larger than 0. This number, as I mentioned this in this slide here. So this model, that number is a combination of how close the model matches the data and how simple the model is and what's the sample size. The sample size is the same for all models. It's the same data. Okay? So
I mean, remember how those test statistics?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make a parallel to what we've done. They're weird numbers. They're not like grounded on zero necessarily. They can only be interpreted in context of other similar tests.
So it's not a particular unit, it's just...
Yeah, it's kind of a unitless thing. And even like when you calculate the AIC on two different models or two different sets of models and data sets, you're going to get different. Some will be negative, sometimes they'll be positive. It doesn't really matter. You're just comparing them like Claudius does on the slide.
It even happens that from one package to the other, the formula for the criterion may vary. And if your package uses approximations or has unimplemented features, such as I was mentioning here, maybe the calculation for the information criterion is different from that of other packages. That makes it very difficult to compare one package to the other. Yeah. Basic things for you guys to take into account when you engage in this kind of complex work. Yes, Leslie.
Based on your last figure there, did you think that the model number 1 was similar in matching to number 4?
Yes.
Or am I reading that wrong?
Yes, yes, that's right. So now when you have model 1 and number 4 as the best, now you can make a compromise. Would I want the most simple model, which is this one? Or go with the other one?
So
Yes.
I know your focus was on the methodology, which is fine, of course, and your research questions reflect that, but
Yes.
could you just interpret this a little bit? Go back to the models, the 5 different models, and just tell us so you're claiming that the model 4 is the quote-unquote best. So the kinship model, interpret the context in the light of your results.
Yes, absolutely. So the number 1 and model number 1, model number 4, they appear to be the ones with the best score, the best criterion, so they would look like the best approximations to the full sharing network. So what it means is that on the one side, only random effects would look like enough to describe the sharing of food across families. On the other hand, you can regard kinship as one of the strongest fixed effects from that contributes to people deciding to share with other households. In other words, people would try to share with the household that they share some kinship with. I hope that helps. Thank you.
No, I was going to say, I think I interpreted my AIC completely wrong when I did my analysis then, because I picked the one with the lowest value.
It is possible that yours is correct as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it highly depends on the package and the author.
Oh.
Yeah. So maybe it warrants a closer look. Yeah. Even there's some definitions that have the opposite signs. They are negative or positive. It is just how it is. Thank you.
Thank you.